why don't we kick off just getting to know you a little bit? I want to talk about Stand Together. I want to talk about, Koch broadly, but I think we should start with Chase. So, grew up and watched Wichita.
Yeah. Wichita, Kansas. Shout out to anyone, Wichita. I'm like, so Dan Gilbert I listened to him and, how proud he is of Detroit and the things he's done, for this community. I feel the same about Wichita. Born and raised in the Midwest, absolutely love the people, like salt of the earth, just like grit and entrepreneurial spirit, humility, integrity, like all those things. And that's why I've lived in a lot of different places, but that's why I've always gone back to Wichita, because I yearn for that. I like going into the big cities and having fun and all the sports and music and all the options that presents, but there's something about, your hometown and the community that you've built there. So very proud to be from there. I love being kind of a Midwestern hayseed, as my mom likes to call it. You're just a hayseed from Wichita. So, but yeah, so from Wichita, maybe an interesting way to introduce myself is my first job with Koch. I grew up playing tennis. My parents, both for my sister Elizabeth is in the audience here today. They always wanted us to be, find our gifts, and whether that's in academics or the thing that they wanted us to develop your skill, be the best you can be, all those things, but also do that in sports. And so Elizabeth was a long distance track runner, very successful AAU runner. And my thing was tennis. I sucked at all the other sports. And so they put a tennis racket in my hand. I was like, okay, you're the tennis kid, So I became a pretty decent tennis player. I was I was nationally ranked in my teenage years. But then by the time I was 15, I got burned out. And just typical thing, I had a later curfew, I had a driver's license, and I started partying when I was 15. And I wanted nothing to do with tennis at that point. And so I remember literally throwing tennis matches in the regionals so I wouldn't make nationals. So I could go home and party with my friends. And so I remember I tanked one match in the quarters so I wouldn't make the next tournament. And my mom, I get off the tennis court, and my mom's in tears because she's the one that spent her whole summer taking me around to all these events. And she's just like, we're gonna have to talk to your father about this. And I was like, oh fuck, here we go. And I get home, and he said, you either give 100% on the tennis court, or you're gonna get a job. You're not gonna be a country club rich kid, bum doing nothing in the summer. And so I said, I hate tennis. I'm done. I get nothing out of it, and get me a job. What I didn't know is the next morning all my shit would be packed, and an old beater pickup truck would be waiting for me in the driveway to ship me off to a cattle feed yard to work 7 days a week and about 20 hours a day. So tennis was sounding pretty good at that point. But you know what? I joke about that experience. I was 15. I lived with the feed yard manager. He had a single wide trailer. We lived in a trailer park. And we went to work at 5 a.m. and left at 8 p.m., 7 days a week. And I was so bitter the first 2 weeks of that. But once I'm like, you know what? I might as well have a good attitude. I'm here the whole summer. And I started working with these amazing people from all these different backgrounds. That's what they did, right? You shoveled cow shit, you dug post holes, you found sick cattle and nursed them back. And my experience was that was the first time that I felt what my grandfather told my dad, the glorious feeling of accomplishment. And so it was the first job, I understood the value of $1. I started learning how to work with people from different backgrounds and all that. So it was a strange thing. I came out of that summer going, wow, I was proud of myself for the first time in my life. I'd had these tennis accomplishments or whatever, but those were meaningless compared to that feeling of accomplishment and actually like creating value and working with a team and all those things. So I always say like my dad, by punishing me, and when I had said I just wanted to party with my friends, gave me the greatest gift of shipping me away, basically. And so that was like that's not the ideal first job at Koch, right? Shoveling cow shit. But it did transform my life. And I go back to like that being such a key milestone that kind of set up the rest of my life and what I learned from that.
And will you tell us about finding Musick?
Yeah, so Musick is it's such a different story. Also, like, shout out to my sister on this. I didn't know that I had this insane deep passion for music and that music was pumping through my blood until I was like 11 or 12 years old. And she was blaring Pink Floyd, The Wall, from her room, and it was the guitar solo of David Gilmour playing Comfortably Numb. And it was just like, it hit me in a way that it's weird for an 11-year-old. Like Pink Floyd's pretty psychedelic rock. It's like really like connecting to that at that age. But it just hit me in a way that changed my life. And I knew music I didn't know what it would be, but I knew it was going to be a big part of my life. And it's funny, like my first job after the whole feed yard experience, one of my friends, Aski Ahmad, he was an audiophile and he knew how to build boom boxes and do car stereos and all that. So my first job was transforming my parents' garage into a boombox manufacturing joint, basically. And Askia taught me how to do that, and so all of our friends would come in and we customized their car. This was when hip hop was taking
up. You had Wichita Pimp My Ride?
Oh, we had, yeah, basically. So that was like, I really got my hands dirty in music and like the sounds and everything, and bass, high end, mid range, and I started learning about, kind of the power of music and what it felt like to me. And this was during when like hip hop was really taking off. And you guys will laugh, but like music I grew up on was like Too Short, NWA, obviously like, Tupac, Dre, Snoop, all that stuff. But that like transformed my life in terms of like, I want some element of my life to be music. And then fast forward into college, I got into the jam band world and started, I went from gangster rap to Grateful Dead. So became a Deadhead and followed all the jam bands around and didn't go to class, much like my tennis story. And Fish and Widespread Panic, and I went into that whole world. But that was when I learned the power of community, because these people that follow these bands around and like what happens in the lots and the community that's built, I realized at that point in time the power of music to unify people. And I didn't really know what I was learning because I was just having fun and I loved the music and I loved being with my friends and meeting people. But I think the main insight as I look back that then has informed what I do now is the power of music to unify people. Even like sports unifies people, and you get 100,000 people in an arena or whatever, but it's still divisive. It's still one team versus the other. And music, everyone is there for that one DJ, that one band, and everyone is on the same wavelength. So I have a personal belief that music is the real Trojan horse to like solving a lot of problems in the world.
And I want to come back to music.
Yep.
And Chase has an awesome band and he's throwing amazing festivals but I want to go back now to Koch, because I think it's foundational to know like that you already had been bitten by this bug. Yeah. But first and foremost, I think it'd be helpful just to understand the breadth of Koch Industries. Like, what are the businesses that it's in? What is the scale at this stage? And I'd love to hear the roles that you've had there, the things that you've done inside of the org.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I would say like before I get into Koch, like I would say like the pillars of my life now are, business. So Koch Inc., which is the thing that I'll talk about in a second. And I spend probably about 2/3 of my time on that. social change, which is Stand Together, where you and I connected. That's all of our philanthropic efforts. And then I'd say the third pillar is music. So I'm this kind of strange mix of technology and business with social change and music, and like how all that works. Together.
That's the Summit Venn diagram.
Yeah, there you go.
That's this whole
That's
crowd.
why this is just amazing to be here, because everyone has at least one of those kind of pillars in their life too, or multiple. So Koch, I described my first job. So I started working at Koch when I was 15. I didn't think I wanted to come back to the business after working every summer from that point when I was 15 all the way through junior year in college. I always had a summer job at the company. But I moved to Austin, Texas for the music. I went to school at Texas A&M and then moved to Austin. And I just wanted to be there because that's where the energy was. I had a good job, but I was really there, to enjoy music and explore that world. But then I realized that I had an incredible opportunity to work with my pop and to really learn the business, not just from a summer job standpoint, but like really understand how the inner workings of Koch and to restart my career. But that had to be on my terms. Like my father never said, you need to come back to Koch because, you're the boss's son and what are you doing screwing around and all. He never put that pressure on me. It was the pressure I put on myself because I wanted to go back and at least give it a shot to see if it was for me as I kind of matured in life. And so I did that after about 3 or 4 years after college, came back on my own terms, and I'll give you kind of two. I've had a lot of jobs because that was in 2003 and I've been at Koch since. But I would say one big part of my career in that, and I've jumped around, I've learned a lot of different elements of the business, but I spent a decade of that time in our fertilizer business, so in agriculture. So we make nitrogen, we trade phosphate, potash, all the key nutrients that a farmer needs to grow crops. And so I learned that business, everything from being a salesperson to a supply chain leader to a trader, and then ultimately they threw me the keys to run the business and said, you should be CEO of this. This was in 2014. And so what a great opportunity, right? I'd kind of earned my way, like learned each of the small capabilities and the businesses, how it worked together. And now I got the big job.
Can you give us a sense of the scale of that business?
Yeah, so that is, sorry, I didn't answer your first question. Like Koch, high level, I'll come back to that. But fertilizer, it's one of 11 different operating platforms that Koch has, because we stretch across, we hit the majority of the economy, but agriculture is one of those areas, and that's one of the businesses that I wanted to learn from the ground up and really kind of prove myself that I knew what I was doing in the company. And so I got that job. And long story short, I was in it for 9 months and I walked in my boss's office and I fired myself. And I said, this is not for me. What I learned about this job is that I'm a builder, I'm not an operator. I'm not an operating CEO. I'm like basically miserable in this job. And because this operates in 50 countries. Yeah, it's back to your scale question, 4,000 employees. It was the third largest profit driver of Koch. It's a huge company. And I was just like this, being in charge of operations and safety and all that, where I have no experience. I didn't have the leadership skills to really understand what leadership and empowerment meant at the time. And I wanted to chase the innovation stuff. I didn't want to make sure the plants were running every day, right? I was like, what's the next thing that's going to disrupt this business? This idea of creative destruction, Joseph Schumpeter's model of always disrupting yourself from within as opposed to letting the market disrupt you. That's that's pumped through my blood since I was a kid, and my dad's taught me that, and that's core to our vision at Koch, is to constantly disrupt yourself. And so I was like, I just want to do disruptive shit. I want to figure out the next technology that's going to disrupt the nitrogen fertilizer that we make. So I fired myself from the CEO job, and then I said, I want to go build companies that will disrupt our basically the golden goose. Because if we don't do that, we're going to miss it. Someone else is going to disrupt it, and we're going to have our business is going to be a dinosaur. So I did that, and I went from a business that was making a huge amount of money to one that was losing $20 million a year. And everyone's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am so much happier now. Yeah, I don't want to lose money forever, but this is where the future is. I want to work on the future." And so. So I did that for a while, but then it got back to that. We started buying companies and putting them together around these disruptive like fertilizers that we're gonna, I think over time replace our commodity business. And it's like, well, now it's an operating job. Now I don't like this job anymore, and I'm not good at it, by the way. And this other guy is an operator. I'm not. So I had the idea to build all the things I learned within the innovation side. I had the insight to say, Koch operates, and this is where I'll get to your original question around like what Koch does. It's the either number one or number two biggest private company in the U.S. Like Cargill and Koch always kind of trade that position. But we basically touch the majority of the economy, everything from Georgia Pacific, wood products, consumer products, paper towels and toilet paper, to energy. We have refineries that make jet fuel and gasoline and that sort of thing, to solar, to software company like Infor, to glass manufacturing, to agriculture, as I described. So very, very broad.
Yep.
But back to, so I saw that and I was like, and I was getting into technology and the ag side, and I was like, we have a laboratory that can help tech founders that are building the next amazing disruptive thing that's gonna blow up one of these industries. We can help them as a customer, as a subject matter expert, as a supplier, or whatever. If we create a Koch as a laboratory model for founders, we need to build a whole venture capital arm that does that, where we fuse them with capital, but we help them in a way that no other company can, because we're so broad. Like a software company can come in, it's like you can sell to 12 companies here all in one shot, right? And we'll create the white glove treatment for you to do that. Easier said than done to pull that off. But I think over the last 7 years since I started that, we've established a really strong brand in technology, and we're in everything from cybersecurity to life sciences, medical devices, semiconductors, AI. We invest in all of it. And so I did that for the last 7 years, and then what I'm doing now is taking, just like you, Jeff, why I say we're kindred spirits. I like building community, I like meeting people, I like finding new opportunities. That's like what I feel like where I can bring the most value to the company. And so I saw an opportunity to say, okay, here we go again. KDT is now an operating business. Built the team.
Koch Disruptive Technologies.
Sorry, yeah.
That's the
Koch Disruptive Technologies, the seed to growth equity platform at Koch. And now I'm not good at this anymore. And I need an operator to operate and execute and manage this. And so I saw an opportunity about 9 months ago with I think it's like $8 trillion of capital and private equity is basically trying to find liquidity, right? And people want their money back from the investments that they're made before they redeploy and invest in new funds.
You don't say.
You don't say. Yeah, it's a tough market to be raising money. And so I see that as an opportunity to focus specifically on family-owned businesses, because we're a private, family-owned company. And what I've learned in terms of when I'm in the room with families, I know the problems that they experience, whether it's succession planning or the board, different points of view on the board in terms of direction on where you go, or you've got private equity on your cap stack and they're thinking short term. The family wants to think long term, so they need a solution for that. So where I'm focused now is working with all these families that have these multi-generational businesses, where can we be a capital solution provider to you? whether we buy 20% of your company, or if you just want to sell, we might be a good home for you based on the culture, based on long-term, staying private and all that. So that's about 2/3 of my time now where I'm spending, but it's all like based on all those other learnings, and I would say failures that I've had in a lot of these companies at Koch. It's led me to that point.
I mean, and I can't wait to get to stand together and impact work. I do want to talk about some of the values of Koch. Values-based leadership, believing in people. It is an incredible organization with an amazingly empowered community of employees who take it extreme. I mean, these guys, everybody there wears the logo on their chests. Like, they love it. It's integrated. It's not just their job. It's all the families, all the friendships. And I can just say, like, from working with KDT and working with the organization, there's corporate venture capital arms of everything, and they are, I hope I'm not offending anybody here, they're not the best in the business typically. They're not the easiest to work with. They don't tend to take huge risks or really even be integrated in the organizations they represent. They're really just a pool of capital that shares a brand. Whereas with your team, if we're like, hey, we're thinking about something in wood, and they're like, great, meet the CEO of this business that runs, it's $1 billion portfolio of assets, and they'll pilot it, and there's 40 pilots going on at any given time. So it's led to this very integrated, very entrepreneurial but scaled organization, which is the hardest thing. Like, with scale, you tend to get a lot of process. But yeah, would love to just dive in.
Well, I mean, I think what's different about Koch and the culture that I would say my father and many the executives have built over time, I mean, it's a very deliberate approach to applying principles versus process. And so then if you create a culture based on first principles instead of top-down process and telling people what to do, you get the best out of people. Right? It's a bottom-up empowerment model as opposed to top-down control. And I'm amazed at some of these businesses they have the smartest guy in the room kind of running the show, and you've seen a lot of successful companies that do that, and it's command and control. I don't know how they're sustainable. I just don't. And I think ultimately over time they go away. But what we've tried to do is really just empower our 130,000 employees with principles. And an example of that would be mutual benefit. Very basic concept, right? It's like with a customer, with a supplier, with an employee, with a supervisor-employee relationship, how are you helping each other, right? And how do I bring something to you of value? And I know if you have good values, you're going to want to help me too. I mean, that's how our friendship started. Right, in terms of like, you helped me you get in the network, I helped you get into Koch because you valued that. It's like a basic principle. But so many people approach business as starting with like, how do I make money? As opposed to starting with the idea of how do I create value for others? And so that has and I've violated that principle. I'll tell you one quick story. And so when I was running the fertilizer business, I was a trader, and I was trading one of these products. And one of my trading partners had no outlet for his ammonia. And we had the only demand in France, like the only place in the world that needed ammonia at that time. So I was basically like, this guy has no alternatives. I'm taking him to the mat. I'm going to take him all the way down to his cost of production, and I'm going to make a killing on this trade. And I did. 6 months, so he said, I have no alternatives. I'll do the deal with you, right? And so everyone's high-fiving on the trading desk. 6 months later, we get an announcement that he's setting up shop right next to us in France and completely blowing up that market and becoming our competitor instead of trading partner. So it's like, why? Because I thought win-lose, right? It's like, I'm going to take him to Matt. I'm the only option. And so, boy, was that a lesson learned for me. It's like, everyone has to win. Like, in everything in life. This is our stand together, approach. This is our business approach. And if you have that with all the constituents in your business, whether it's a potential investment partner like you, whether it's a government official in the community, on how, it's like figure out how to help them win as well, whether it's a supplier, a customer. So you've got this like Venn diagram of all the constituents where everyone has to win. So I think that's one of 100 principles that I feel like we try to empower our employees with, to understand these principles and then get out of the way and let them run. And the last thing I would say about our culture is that if we boil down, because we have an actual, and my dad's written 3 books on this, principle-based management. It's a management framework for how to build culture and how to, hopefully learn from failures and ultimately succeed long term. What we want to do with that culture is have every employee think and act like an owner. Like, what if you can get 130,000 employees to feel like they have ownership stake in the business? And there's a lot of things I could talk about, like on how we do that with incentives and motivation and all that, but that's like the North Star. And you never can fully achieve that, but if you have that as a deliberate approach, like you can do some good with it. So that's how I generally kind of summarize what we try to do in our culture.
It's awesome. And it's so mirrored in the work that you guys do in culture, in impact. Perhaps we can dive into Stand Together.
Yeah. So my father's been working on social change for almost 60 years. He turns 90 in November, and so he started in his early 30s with these principles of, if I bet on people that like want to help others and spread that beyond just him trying to help people, I'm going to bet on others, then hopefully we can move society in the right direction. And he's very, very passionate about all these ideas. He was passionate about ideas of equal rights, mutual benefit, as I just described, self-actualization, Maslow's principle of having, if you could have every human understand what their gift is, because we all have different gifts, and help remove barriers to unlock that potential, what would the world look like if we did that? Those are kind of principles of openness, being open to other ideas instead of being tribal and shutting someone down because they believe or attacking someone because they believe something that you don't, right? So this is what he studied and grew up with, and all these different philosophers. And by the way, he studied not only like Maslow, Polanyi, all these are all his favorite philosophers that inform the business approach that I talked about. But he also studied the other side, the other thinking, Nietzsche and Plato, and even study why did Hitler think the way he did? Because he believes in the scientific method, which is trying to study, if you believe in something, trying to disprove your hypothesis as much as you're trying to prove that hypothesis. So that's where a lot of these ideas came from that you're talking about with Stand Together. And this is what we're talking about is social change and philanthropy. I don't like calling it philanthropy. I think philanthropy has a very negative connotation that it's just give money to things and hope it works out, but you have no idea what the results are. So we are not, I wouldn't call us a philanthropic organization. We are a social change organization. And what we try to do is bet on people with these principles of empowerment and believing in people to create movements that makes the world a better place. And so Jeff's part of Stand Together, this community. I mean, there's a lot of similarities to what you've built with Summit here. Amazing people that all have deep, deep passion and belief that they want to help people improve their lives. They want to help people remove barriers that are standing in the way. We unify around that, and we have events similar to this, really big events, sometimes very bespoke events around specific issues. But I think people come to Stand Together because they believe that they can get a higher ROI on their philanthropic dollars than they can anywhere else. And so as opposed to everyone going off in silos and doing their own philanthropy one-off, why not get the leverage that you can in business by working with a group like Stand Together that's been vetting organizations for 50 years to get hopefully the best results. And it's not around one thing like poverty or addiction or criminal justice reform or transforming education. We have a comprehensive approach across all of these issues because we feel like if you're really going to change society, you have to really address all of these. And we have the scale to do that. And you've obviously seen
Well, I've
some
seen
of that.
you guys both support growing organizations that have proven that they are, potential shot at major transformation, like Khan Academy, which was a significant 9-figure gift, bringing, AI co-pilots into schools, or things like anti-Semitism with Michael Davis's organization, where you guys staked it with a significant 8-figure gift, but it's the foundational capital for them to go and prove out that this can really be real. So would love to hear about the different pillars and perhaps some of your favorite examples.
Yeah, I'll go to examples. There's a lot of different pillars that we focus on. Like I said, we're very, very broad. One of our biggest in terms of I'll just hit macro first. We, across Stand Together, the Koch family plus over 1,000 leaders that join us in this effort, we deploy a little over $1 billion a year into solving these problems. And so, but it's scaling exponentially because we're getting results. And so I'll share just some of my favorite stories of what we're doing. One is around addiction. And back to the point of believing in people, the thing that's really different about Stand Together is that we don't believe that people are problems to be solved. We believe that people that have been through a problem and struggle with something their whole life is the source of the solution to the problem. And that's a very different approach because so much philanthropy is top down, I have the solution, all you people go do it this way, right? And that's one of the reasons why almost every government program doesn't work and actually goes the other way and the results get worse because you don't have the local knowledge, you don't have the right people that are coming up with solutions that really understand the problem. So an example of this is 7 years ago, we met Scott Strode, who struggled with addiction his whole life. And he had a mentor that basically said, you need to get your ass in the gym or you're gonna die, right? Alcohol, coke, he was on all this stuff. And so he put him on a bike and he got him in the boxing ring and said, I'm gonna work your ass back into shape and you're gonna believe in yourself because right now you don't believe in yourself. And so he did that and then transformed Scott's life and he kicked addiction with that by having a community and believing in himself, starting to really lean into dignity and then started surrounding himself with others. And he founded this organization called the Phoenix with the insight. It's it helped me. I can take these principles of the power of exercise and what I felt, plus the power of community. I'm gonna build gyms and I'm gonna bring these people, I'm gonna pull them off the street and they're gonna work out just like I did. And so we met him when he had 3 gyms in Colorado. It was founded in Colorado Springs. And what Stand Together does is it's like venture capital. You find an incredible founder and an entrepreneur that's been through the problem like Scott, and you supercharge him with capital and capability and principles on how to scale and how to build a business. And so fast forward to where we are today, he was helping, I think, in the thousands, which was remarkable. And by the way, the results he was getting relative to alternatives was relapse rates were sub 10%.
Amazing.
Through this model. So it's all about results. It's not about virtue signaling, and it is about where does it actually work? Where are the results? And so he has. So we came alongside him with all of these donors from around the nation, and everyone said, I want a Phoenix in my backyard. I'll fund that. Raise my hand, right? And so we have donors from all 50 states. And so within 5 years, we were in all 50 states with these gyms.
And how many people does it now touch?
And so there's that, then COVID happened, all the gyms shut down. Right, so then we created a virtual model where it's well, actually, you don't need gyms for this. You can actually do this in your basement and do virtually, and you have a virtual community of support. It's not exactly the same, but it still works, right? And then what we did is, back to my passion for music, we got the music industry, which is plagued by addiction. Not only artists, but the crews that are on the road, people in the music industry. It's the biggest problem that they deal with, addiction and mental health. And we went and got Live Nation involved. We got AEG involved. They're about 80% market share. So they're the two kind of 800-pound gorillas that like can move things quickly. We got iHeartMedia involved, and then we got artists involved as well that basically took the Phoenix on tour with them because it resonated so deeply with them. So fast forward back to answer your question to today, because of all that, it's gone exponential, and I think like next month we'll hit 1 million people served with that model.
That's awesome.
So that's the believing in, it starts one person. Like that's what, we're like, oh God, you need all this capability. You need one person with one idea that's totally disruptive. And then you get behind someone like Scott, and you get very creative on partnerships, like in the music industry. All of a sudden you're at Coachella and Stagecoach and Bourbon and Beyond and every major festival, and it's pervasive. And I think the Phoenix can become, the next thing is like, it becomes a standard of care for addiction because it gets better results than anything else in the world. So
awesome.
that's what we do at Stand Together. We focus on a lot of other issues, but I think that's a really powerful example.
Well, I brought my children to a Stand Together event, and your daughter was very, very sweet. Clementine was very sweet to my little girl, and she still talks about it, even though she didn't remember today, whatever. And I was, just a couple of my friends were like, what's that like? I was like, well, one, it's awesome, because it's like they're doing a 4-quadrant exercise where it's like, this is what I want to buy, this is what I want to give, this is what I want to impact. But there are one thing that was funny is the children's book collection was very pro-capitalist. Oh, yeah. It was like Curious George provides mezzanine loans to the children's community kind of shit. And but I want to hear like, why is that so important? Why is that important to the family? Why is that core to the philosophy?
Well, I mean, I think it's just that, I think like it goes back to like helping people remove barriers in their lives. And I can't tell you how many friends that I know that came from the worst, that best friends of mine that came from the worst neighborhoods and like looked like no future, gang violence in their house, no father, that like we believed in or whatever. And so they were entrepreneurial, they were contribution motivated. They're like, I want out of this. And they see an opportunity to go create something, go build a boombox company, right? Because that's what your skill is. And the opportunity to remove barriers so they can go create an honest living and turn that into a successful business. That's why we teach these principles to kids. That's why I'm working with my kids on it, teaching them the power of compounding when they're 7. It's like, this is like one of the most important things that you can learn, right? Don't go just blow money and waste money. Like you save and you compound, so you got to gamify that. So I want to share one because I know we're getting short on time, about kids. Because we have new creative ways at delivering these principles in ways that meet different people where they are. And so I have a friendship with Jimmy Donaldson, who's Mr. Beast, for those of you that don't know him. He's the biggest YouTuber in the world, 400,000 subscribers now, 400 million subscribers. And, with his reach, and when you add up all his platforms, it's like 800 million followers or something. It's like staggering. It's like 10% of the world or something. And so we're experimenting with him with Stand Together, and he's taking these principles and concepts, because if you've seen what Mr. Beast does, it's all about teaching kids how to make a contribution. And he makes it entertaining, right? And so when I connected with him, I talked to him about these stories, and he's like, I want to get these stories out on my platform. I want kids to see this. I want not only the kids to see it, but I want their parents that are sitting on the couch with them to see it. And so we're doing big things with him, and we've got some really cool strategies. And to me, like, take it back up a notch, whether it's the music industry or new disruptive media like YouTube and entertainers like Mr. Beast, or working with Imagine Entertainment on new documentaries around telling these stories, or sports. We're working with the NFL and the NBA as well to scale this up. And they're partnering with us because they're like, you guys are different. Like you're at the ground level, and we see the results that you're getting. We're seeing the movements that you can drive on things like addiction or juvenile justice reform or whatever the issue is. And I am more excited about the future of this country than I've ever been. Yes, there's noise, and yes, there's divisiveness and all that, but I have this deep belief based on some of these things that are happening, and like what people that don't get caught up in the right versus left garbage and the tribalism that the media tries to shove down all of our throats, and actually just try to like get in and do what you can to help others, that I think we're going to embark on a cultural shift that's really positive, where people really start to really think about, okay, what was this country founded on? And what was the Declaration of Independence all about? And it's about helping people and removing barriers so they can pursue their dreams, pursue happiness and all that. And we're going to start practicing mutual benefit more. And we're going to help people self-actualize and all that. And so I believe in that because I see that. And I see people like Jimmy Donaldson or Mike Rapino at Live Nation or all these like big influencers say that is the way. And so I feel like, and with communities like this, and the more people that get behind that and like lean in with whatever contribution they can make, it's not just money, it's network, it's talent, it's ideas, it's all that we can get the country back on track.
And I mean, that's It's a great closing statement. You just kind of nailed it. That's like the walk-off home run. I want to be mindful of time because I know Tim Urban's going to do a talk that many of you might want to check out. This did accomplish a lot of what I wanted. I wanted people in this audience to get to know you, to understand the principles of your organizations. And it's been so inspiring to me to see this group of people that have committed to really helping continue the American dream, to enable people to achieve a better outcome than where they started, which will not just happen automatically. It's a wild time. Well, I want to, as we close out, give you the opportunity to tell us about what you're doing now, because you're doing so much more now in music and in culture and with the festivals, and so perhaps we can.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that what drives culture is sports, media, music, and entertainment. And if we can't crack into ideas in the social media, what our kids are going to pay attention to, if you can't get ideas of like how to help people and how to make a contribution out there, then I think you have a risk of completely losing the country and it becoming much more top-down control and the government telling people what to do instead of a bottom-up empowerment model. I think there's a lot of risk to that. And that's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. That's at the principal level. Whether it's Republicans are in power or Democrats are in power, everyone just wants more power, right? And what that means is then you've got people being told what to do and how to live their lives. And that's, for me, that's not what we want. We want a culture of empowerment. So that's why I'm so focused on the cultural piece of it, because the last 5 or 6 years I've learned a lot about what you can do in sports, with music. I already described the music stuff. One other example, just for music lovers out there, of like a brand new thing that we're doing. We're on tour with The Weeknd right now. And I didn't know this until we started working with Abel and his team, but he's the #1 streaming artist on Spotify, more than Taylor Swift. And it's like, I didn't realize, I love his music, but I hadn't dug into it. But what he cares about is basically teaching people that there's so many different ways to find success. It's not, well, everyone has to go through college, and if you don't go through college, then you're a failure, right? And like, that's a paradigm that unfortunately I think we live with. Whereas he's like, I came from nothing. I had a gift, and I went through all this hell to find my way through, but then I found a way to become successful. So he wants to help others with his story. And so we created a campaign with him, which like 1 million strong addiction. This one's on basically the future of work is a simple way to think about it. So it's called the WAY campaign, W-A-Y, but it's short for Who Are You? And he's got 42 tour stops in North America. He's on tour right now. And so he's got programming at all of his shows. He talks about it at his show. He's got the QR codes to where, I mean, that's a powerful question. I was asked that question by a friend. It's like, who is Chase Koch? And I'm doing the dabba-dabbas going, yeah, bud, you know, like, that was about 7 years ago. And then my sister Elizabeth helped me find my North Star and my purpose to like get my life on track. But that's what he's trying to do too. But he's doing it with the biggest music platform in the world. So you go to his show, you click on the QR code, and then Stand Together organizations underneath that of basically, here's depending on where you are in your life, here's things that you could do to get your life back on track. That's everything from, you know, addiction to, you know, post-secondary education to finding a dirty job with Mike Rowe. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's like, and so anyway, those are the examples that, like Mr. Beast, getting documentaries out there. I'll say one more thing around this I'm very excited about. We are going to capture the opportunity of America's 250th birthday which is next year, right? 2026. July 4th. It's not about throwing a party. It's about capturing the narrative around who are we as Americans and what is America's identity. And it's about helping others. It's about grit. It's about making a contribution. And so all these organizations that I've been talking about, we're going to be part of basically this movement to get people involved in and leveraging this amazing moment in time that you almost never have, right? In this world, how do you actually captivate people's attention? Usually it's around something awful like 9/11, and everyone's then focused on it. But we have a moment in time to focus on something positive and recast what it means for the American dream. But we're doing that with music, sports. So we're going to throw a massive concert with all these top stars in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium on July 3rd, leading up to the 4th this next year. We're working with the NFL, the NBA.
Kevin Wall.
Yeah, when Kevin Wall's going to put on. So Kevin Wall did, you remember Live Aid, the concert, raising money for AIDS? And he did Live Aid as well. He's the executive producer of this. So we're like, this is meaningful bets we're making here to do this.
And this barely scratches the surface. I mean, honestly, like we could talk for 3 more hours. And I think the reason I'm so thrilled by our friendship, and I learned so much from your organizations and principle-based leadership and your, you know, and the way that you guys believe in people. InQ said it yesterday in his poem where it's like you can change your actions and certain things will shift, but you really haven't changed. Your surroundings might change, your experience of life, but you might be a stranger in that space. But if you change your beliefs, the world just magically starts to change in front of you. And we talked, these are all the actions that you guys take, but the foundational beliefs is what I think empowers that.
And the last thing I'll say is that I'd love for anyone that's interested, if any of this like spoke to you at all and you want to learn more about Stand Together and like how you can get involved given your unique gift or passion area. Everyone in this room knows Dhani Jones, right?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you don't know Dhani Jones. Okay.
3 people.
There's 3 people. Dhani's right there in that beautiful orange hat. Dhani is a key leader with me in Stand Together, and he plays a similar role for Stand Together that he does for Summit. I'd encourage you to talk to Dhani about how you might get involved, or talk to me as well. We need more partners. We need more to really exponentially make these ideas grow and drive change. So I just appreciate you guys taking the hour to listen to this.
Thank you, Chase. Yeah. Great to have you here. Thank you, guys.